Right, let's get to the Palestinian view about how all of this is unpacking. We're joined by Sultan Barakat in Istanbul. He's a professor of public policy at the Hamad bin Khalifa University. And offering the Israeli view is Gideon Levy, a columnist for the Haaretz newspaper, and he joins us from Tel Aviv. Good of you to join us. Let's start off with you, Gideon, and ask, do you think this plan has the legs to create a permanent ceasefire in Gaza?
If you talk about a permanent ceasefire, the answer is yes. It has a chance, there is a hope. If you ask me about furthermore, some kind of a greater solution, I think we are as far as we have been before this agreement. This agreement includes so many question marks and unsolved problems that I don't see it getting much farther. But you know, stopping the war is by itself enough of a goal just to stop the war, to stop the genocide, to stop the suffer, to release the hostages and the Palestinian prisoners. And maybe then there will be created some new atmosphere. Right now, I think we should focus our expectations only for this.
Sultan, the same question for you.
Well, I think in this press conference, it's become clear that the original proposal that was submitted by the Arab and Muslim states has, in fact, been modified. They submitted it to Trump. By the time Trump and Netanyahu announced it publicly, it's not quite the same proposal. And I think the difference is in the future, is in the long-term issue, because the Arab and the Muslim states would have never accepted, I don't think, just a momentum for a ceasefire without having a clear political horizon for the Palestinian independence and the end of the occupation. That is what brought them all together. That's what brought the Palestinians on board initially. And I think this is what they presented to Trump. Now, also interesting is that the spokesperson said, but we kind of accepted this and we now have to become pragmatic and work with what we have. And we should build on the first initiative that Netanyahu has taken in Washington of broadly accepting the plan, although he has modified it. But then the next stage, the logical stage, would have been that Israel should have immediately announced a form of ceasefire. And this is what Trump asked of Netanyahu the minute Hamas, again, broadly accepted the plan and wanted to move forward. That did not take place. And this makes us really suspect the intentions of the Israeli government and whether they can be trusted to take it beyond the release of hostages. I think they have the interest in the release of the captives at the moment, and they will probably do the very best to try and address it as such. But the moment they receive those, I think things will be different. And this is why it's a long way to answer that a permanent ceasefire, even as can be imagined by our friend Levy, is unlikely as well.
Gideon, you know, bearing in mind what Sultan and what you said before, I mean, it does state this plan recognises the Palestinians' aspirations for a state, but no roadmap for statehood. Now, that's something clear in this. And is that there, in essence, to perhaps get it through the Benjamin Netanyahu coalition? It's a coalition can accept something like that. And how difficult is it for him to sell it within Israel?
It's not only about the coalition. I must remind you that a few weeks ago, there was a vote in the Israeli parliament, and even the opposition voted against the Palestinian state. We are far, far, far from any kind of final solution. We are far, far from a settlement. The two-state solution is something quite imaginative right now. I'm not sure it can be implemented at all, but in any case, with this government who declared that it is against it, you will not get any further unless the American president will be decisive enough and continue to be decisive enough, which I have my doubts. He doesn't seem to be enthusiastic about the two-state solution either. So without an American pressure, nothing will move.
Just stay with us, Gideon, and Sultan, because meanwhile the Israeli army has been intensifying its raids across now the occupied West Bank as well. Forces arresting at least 15 Palestinians during large-scale incursions into Al-Bira and in the Jalzone refugee camp. They've also set up military checkpoints around Ramallah. A similar scene could be also reported in other parts and other refugee camps where soldiers have blocked streets and fired, should I say, tear gas here as well. Sultan, okay, this is something which is widening. So what's happening in Gaza could also happen in the West Bank. This is something which people are fearful for, Sultan. But, we've also got this whole withdrawal program that Israel has to commit to, where they gradually go back and they create this buffer zone in Gaza itself. The thing is, it's so vague in terms of how you actually decide that you have fulfilled certain parts of this plan in order to get those withdrawals and those stages here as well.
It is, and it's also linked to having international forces deployed in the Gaza Strip. And that on its own is a huge task because it's been done outside the United Nations framework. Had it been done within the UN framework, i.e. this plan is now taken to the Security Council decides, standing peacekeeping forces are sent and so on, things I think would have moved fast. But the way it is being left vague means that the Israelis have even more excuses to delay and be very selective as to their withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, where they want to withdraw, where they don't want to withdraw, what kind of exchange they are expecting, and so on. And this is a really important critical point that until now we don't know who is willing to contribute those forces and what will be the mandate of those forces. If it is about disarming Hamas on behalf of Israel, then it is doomed to fail. And I think whatever nations provide soldiers and the nations who are going to pay for it, they will regret having got involved in this conflict. However, if it is a UN protection force, as happened in cases like East Timor, in Kosovo, and elsewhere, then I think there is hope. And I think this is what is required. What is required is to create a buffer zone, a firewall between Israel and the Palestinians, to allow the Palestinians the time to reconstitute their political scene and to rebuild and stabilize, and also to offer Israel the security that they seek from Gaza. Anything short of that, I think, is a recipe for a disaster, and particularly if it ended up including forces from the region. We know very well that Israel does not respect any country in the region. They will not stand or hold themselves from attacking the Palestinians and making those also victims in between. It has to be an international force with the Western nations contributing, and potentially even going as far as China and others making a contribution.
Well, Gideon, final question to you here. So, from picking up what Sultan said, okay, you've got to try and stabilize Gaza. It's uninhabitable, and as you've written as well in the past, that it's to a certain extent also true now of Israel, and there's a destruction of Israel which is beneath the surface too now. Explain very quickly. And that makes it more different, makes it more polarized.
Yes and no. First of all, we cannot compare between the destruction in Gaza and the destruction of Israel or in Israel. Totally uncomparable. Gaza is an unlivable place deliberately. Israel is now really quite broken, but far from Gaza's situation. Israeli society went through a shift in those 2 years, in the last 2 years, and not for the positive direction. Namely, most of the Israelis believe that after the 7th of October, Israel has the right to do whatever it wants, and they had proven it. And secondly, that after the 7th of October, there is no room in Israel for any kind of humanity, empathy, mercy over the horrible catastrophe of Gaza. In other words, Israel turned to become more nationalistic, more militaristic, and in many ways also more devoted to fight the Palestinians, all of them, and to live on the sword for many more years.
Gideon Levy, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and Sultan Barakat joining us from Istanbul and Tel Aviv, respectively. Well, we can now find out what has been going on at the